I got to say that we're pretty proud to be a part of the MAVTV family, where they continue to recognize this month women in motorsports. You'll notice if you watch MAVTV that the female voice cutting some of these spots is Crash Gladys. She's doing some features regarding some of these women in motorsports. So playing off what Statman had to say about Hedy Lamar, it's difficult, is absolutely fantastic because of what women continue to do, Erica Enders, by beating the Jesus out of dudes wearing pants in motorsports.
The Bud Jesus.
Yes. Beats the dungarees.
Well, she's got 6 or going for 6 this year. She's going for 6 this year, isn't she?
Good heavens, even I've lost count. And she just got another one last year. Was that her 5th or her 6th?
Yeah, I think it was her 5th, and she's going for 6 this year.
Regardless, it's fantastic that, again, we've been strong proponents of recognizing women in motorsports, and I get tired of asking it, but I still feel obligated to bring it up in our conversations when we interview successful women or women in general in motorsports about some of the negativity that comes along with being a woman in motorsports. It's still there. It's not as gnarly as it was, frankly, when Crasher started. She's blazed a trail for a few out there. Go back to Shirley Muldowney. You can go back to Janet Guthrie. You can go back to Lyn St James. It's not as gnarly. It's still there. There's still issues with it.
It's shocking to me that it's still there.
Yeah.
But maybe it shouldn't shock me. Look what's happening in Formula One right now with Christian Horner and.
Right. Well, let's don't dig that rabbit hole right now. Let's celebrate the fact that MAVTV and yours truly, SpeedFreaks, champion women in motorsports. How does Statman dig it out of the dirt to talk about Hedy Lamar developing?
Because that's what Statman does.
I get it.
He takes what's the obvious conversation and just blows it up into something that you're like, huh, I never would have known that had you not done that research. Amazing.
I'm sitting in my car in between my daughter's soccer games, editing Beat the Freaks, uploading it to Twitter, thanks to cell phones and Wi-Fi. Thank you, Hedy Lamar. Nice job.
Exactly.
Right?
She didn't create Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi was created long after she was dead. But the technology that she developed is what they used to create Wi-Fi.
It was Al Gore that created the internet, right? Sorry. Oh, my goodness.
You went there.
I did. I went there. I had to go there, man.
Yeah, speaking of rabbit holes.
Hey, who is it? Here you go. I'm going to put everybody on the spot. And I'm going to go last because I need to figure out my answer. Richie, when you think of women in motorsports, your go-to female in motorsports, not necessarily for blazing a trail, but the significance of a woman in motorsports. She doesn't have to drive a car. She doesn't have to own a team. She could be changing the right rear tire of a cup team. Who's the
Danica Patrick?
You on this screen right now.
Right. True. Go ahead. Say it again, Richie.
Danica Patrick.
Explain why.
Because she was the face of IndyCar and NASCAR for much of the early part of the early to mid 2000s when I started to understand really watch motorsports for the most part. And she had a lot of crossover. She was on ESPN. She was on the cover of magazines, and she was the biggest kind of female athlete in the motorsports world for the longest time when I was younger, and kind of still is. She still shows up on Formula One broadcasts all the time and is still a big name around the motorsports world. If you ask people who Danica Patrick is out on the street, most people are like, oh yeah, the race car driver, still to this day.
Well, and I can promise you that the Danicas that I see in Henley's soccer tournament, that name didn't come from someone in their family. It came from Danica Patrick. There wasn't a Danica out there until Danica Patrick.
There is a Danica in Henley's class, and I remember 3 years ago, I think it was, so when they were in first grade, I just flat out asked her, I said, how did you get your name? She said, well, my mom said there's a female race car driver. And I'm like, that's all I needed to know. That's all I
Also,
needed to know.
Enzo. We know 3
We know a lot
Enzos
of
at
Enzos.
Henley School. And if you know Ferrari, you know it's Enzo Ferrari. It's
Yep.
like, yeah. All right. No Formula One conversation. Statman, who's your go-to when it comes to female in motorsports?
Michèle Mouton,
Yes.
rally driver, won at least 4 World Rally Championship events, was an Audi factory driver, and eventually started the International Race of Champions competition, and she's changed lives and
Right.
still is doing that. Was just at a conference a week ago yesterday in Washington.
Crasher, who's your go-to?
Mine is Lyn St James. When I was, I guess, I don't know if everybody knows, when I was a princess for the Indy 500 in 1992, Lyn St James was the rookie of the year. I got a chance to meet her, and it just burst my entire mind wide open. My love of IndyCar was already there, but she just expanded it for me. And then getting to know her through the years and what she is doing with the Women in Motorsports panels and her Women in Motorsports Foundation, she is not giving up the fight for women's equality and just pushing for people to get in the business because of your passion, because of your knowledge, because you can do it. You're no different than a man. You can do it just as well as they can. And I love her passion for all of us in the sport.
Lyn St James. Other. Yep, good friend of the Freaks. Mine is Shirley Muldowney. I don't have time to get into it, but Shirley Muldowney is my go-to when I've got to credit females in motorsports.